Welcome, everyone. This is Kara Ostrom with the NAPCP, and I will be your host for today's virtual demonstration presented by WNS Technology Services. So today's presentation is being presented by David Mayer, lead consultant with WNS. David is also joined by end-user NAPCP members Linda Harrower from the University of Cape Town, South Africa, and Joylene Ainsley with the City of Tacoma. David, ladies, Linda and Jolene, thanks a lot for your time. Up early, like I said, staying late in your days, as well as your great expertise today. And so with that, David, enjoy. It's all you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kara. And thank you again, Linda and Jolene, for joining us today. And thank you to everyone out there that has joined wherever you are. We're pleased to have you and hope you enjoy some of the content that you'll hear today. Again, my name is David Mayer. I'm from WNS Technology Services, based out of Mumbai, India, and I'm a lead consultant with WNS. And today we're going to talk about a product that's called Xponential and what kind of things you can do with your P-Card program with a tool, an integrated tool like Xponential. With that, let's jump right in. Let me give you a brief overview of WNS. We are a leading global business process management company. We are a British Airways spinoff. Again, based out of Mumbai, India. There's a lot of information here about our delivery centers around the world. Again, based out of India, but we do have locations in the UK, in the US, South Africa, across Europe, and in Central America as well. We have a strong reputation for complex multi-process deliveries of solutions. All right, let's talk about ERP systems. We have, as an example, SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, systems like that. Many of you that use an ERP system like that have invested a lot of money, perhaps millions of dollars or pounds, in that type of system. And why have you done that? You've done that to improve your process efficiencies, your control efficiencies, the integrity of your data. Because within your ERP, you have your finance and accounting, your supply chain, your project management, human resources. All of those things are wrapped up in your ERP. So you have an integrated solution for your finance and accounting, your accounts payable. All of those things are integrated inside of your ERP. However, having a little trouble here with the mouse. There we go. What's missing? There is one thing missing. It's your P-Card technology, right? You have everything else inside of your ERP, but your P-Card technology is disconnected. So all of those things that you normally do. Sorry, I'm having a little bit of an issue with my mouse here this morning. Okay, here we go. All of those things that you do with your P-Card, they occur outside of your ERP. Your administrators, they're doing all of those things outside of the ERP. Your users, they log into some system outside of the ERP. Your cardholders, they do the reconciliation, all of your auditing, all of your tax compliance, all of your reporting. All of those things are happening outside of SAP, and somehow you've got to manage to get that data into your ERP somehow. And you can see I've got kind of a brick wall drawn here. How are we going to get that data into SAP? In addition, we have this concept of incongruent data. Within your ERP, you have things like organizations, and speaking specifically about SAP in this case. You have vendors, SAP vendors. You have purchase orders. You have the line items of the POs. But out in the P-Card industry, you have merchants, which is the equivalent of your vendors. You have card transactions, which can be a representation, again, of your POs. And then the levels of data on those card transactions represent your PO line items. So you have this incongruency. You've got this data in those two environments, and how do you match them up? In addition, in order to get that data over to your ERP, you must come up with some type of interface, a redundant interface, to get that data. over to your ERP. So in our minds, these additional interfaces, this incongruent data, it leads to inefficiencies and a risk. So what is an ERP card program? So we've kind of coined that little term, ERP and P card together. An ERP card program, it's the integration, it's the marriage of those two worlds, the best of your P card and the best of your ERP. All of the control and all of the efficiencies and all of those things that your ERP brings to you, we're going to marry those two worlds together. So in your old world where you have a disconnected P card technology, we want to become an integrated scenario. So once you can get to that place, you are fully integrated for your users. You have a fully integrated approval process. You have a fully integrated set of postings to your general ledger, your auditing, your reporting, all of those things that you do with your P card program are fully integrated in your ERP system. And now you can enjoy the benefits of all that control and all of those things that you've already invested in SAP, in your ERP, can be now done with your P card program. Which is why we say Xponential, it's about the integration, and that's really what we try to push, and what we want to talk about is the integration inside of your ERP. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time today for me to show you the actual product, but I'd like to walk through at a very high level what the data flow looks like by using a product like Xponential with your ERP. So we have several scenarios, and the first scenario I want to talk about is the non-PO scenario where there's no purchase order involved. You just have users, cardholders that go out and they buy things on their cards, and how we would handle that. So if you see the large box at the bottom, it's your SAP environment, and we've installed, for the sake of this scenario, Xponential on your SAP box. All right, so your cardholders, they go out, they buy things, whether it's over the phone, over the internet, or in person. The merchant takes the card, swipes the card, and charges the amount. The merchant bank then pays the merchant within a few days, so the merchant gets their money. The transactions are then going to flow through a daily file that comes to you from your issuing bank or from American Express. And the transactions will get loaded into the Xponential tables inside of your SAP environment. At that point, notifications will be sent to your cardholders or to the users, whoever is designated to be the reconcilers of the transactions. They will review, possibly edit the transactions if they need to split the data, assign different accounting, or whatever they need to do. And then they will approve the transactions and submit them along to managers for further approvals. I'm only showing one level of approval here on this slide for the sake of the amount of real estate that I have, but there can be multiple levels of approvals here. Once the approvals are complete, then you can either have a financial manager post these transactions to your general ledger, or they can be auto-posted by an SAP job that runs one of our Xponential programs. So the resulting journal entry inside of SAP would be a debit to the cost objects, to the GL account that's on the transaction lines, and a credit to a reconciliation account for your P card. All right? So all of those transactions would go through that flow. At the end of the month, we would bring in a monthly statement file from your provider, bring that into Xponential as well. We would marry up all of the transactions on that monthly statement with their counterparts from the daily files, and we do this to make sure that you've got all transactions present and accounted for within the system. Once the financial manager or whoever is designated to do this reconciliation is happy that everything is present and accounted for, the statement will get posted in SAP. The result would be an invoice against your card provider vendor account inside of SAP, and it's a debit to that reconciliation account. So in a perfect world, if all transactions made it through their approval hierarchy and got posted, sorry, didn't mean to do that, then you would see this reconciliation reconciliation account and go back to 0. But we know it's not a perfect world, so that's why we have that reconciliation account sitting in the middle, because if all of the approvals and everything else doesn't happen during the month, then your reconciliation account is simply out of balance, but you're still able to pay your provider on time. So then you just do a normal payment run, and you pay your bank. Okay, so that's the scenario, the classic scenario for non-PO purchases. Let's move on to the next scenario. This is where a PO is involved. It's a very similar process, but again, just slightly different on the front end. So we've got purchase orders being created inside of your ERP. In this case, SAP. So if your buyers, you could create the PO either through a purchase requisition or from SRM, or if someone went straight into SAP and created a PO directly. Doesn't matter how that PO gets created. It's just that there will be a new payment term that you'll create in your system, and that will designate the PO to be a P-card PO. All right. At that point, they'll send the PO over to the merchant. The merchant will provide the goods or the services, and then at that point, once they provided those goods or services, they can charge the card. The card that's on the PO, by the way, that was back here when it was created. We stamp a card number. We derive a card number on the header of the PO. The merchant then will then go ahead and pay the merchant. The merchant bank will then pay the merchant, and then the transactions will come in through those daily files. If the PO number has been stamped on the transactions, and it should be, unless they're a level 1 merchant, then we are able to auto-reconcile the transactions back to the PO, and we can do the invoice receipt automatically using 3-way or 2-way matching. So the result of that auto-reconciliation is a successful invoice receipt on the PO, and the transaction is left in a ready-to-post state. We know that, again, it's not a perfect world. Sometimes the transactions don't auto-reconcile, and for those exceptions, those will be routed into a queue for someone who is designated to be the card reconciler. It might be the buyer or the person's card that was used to pay for the PO, or it might be a shared services group, maybe in the accounts payable area, that will handle all of the PO-based transactions and do those reconciliation of the exceptions. The result, again, is a successful invoice receipt against the PO, and the transaction left in a ready-to-pay state. We have many customers that use this particular scenario, and success rates are kind of across the board depending on the level of data that the merchant can send and how well the POs are being created. But we do have some customers that are getting a 97%, 95, 97% hit rate on the successful invoice receipts through the automated process. So only 3% or 5% coming down here through the exception process. You've seen some good success there. All right, so once the transaction gets into its ready-to-post state, those transactions will be auto-posted or manually posted then by a financial manager. The resulting journal entry in this case would be a clearing document which relieves the liability off of the vendor account that's on the PO and a credit to the reconciliation account. And then at the end of the month, again, we bring in the monthly statements, and that process remains the same as far as the monthly statement review and reconciliation and posting. All right, so that's the purchase order scenario. Let's move to the next one, and this is a new scenario that we've added into the product just recently. We've got a customer here in North America that's going to be doing this, and it involves a mobile application. So they've contracted a third party to write a mobile app for their users that are using smartphones. And so when the user buys something and they use their card, they will use their smartphone to take a snapshot of their receipt, and they will also use that app to enter the cost accounting values that need to be assigned to that transaction. So they'll assign the GL account, the work order, or the cost center, or the network, or the WBS element, whichever of those cost accounting objects they'll assign on that mobile app, and then they'll hit upload, and it will talk to some functions within Xponential and load that data into Xponential, into sort of a holding pen, if you will. The merchant then continues on with processing the card transaction, getting their money, and then the transactions come in through those normal daily files. At that point, we will recognize that this transaction, during this daily file upload, we'll recognize that transaction has some data already loaded into it from the mobile app, and we'll marry that data up with the transaction and stamping that information right on the transaction when it comes in the door. So then the transaction can then be routed directly to someone, a cardholder or someone back in the office that gets into Xponential that does the review and the approvals and moves it along the chain for posting. So the idea here is that you free up the cardholder from having to go back into Xponential, into SAP on the back end and doing some reconciliation. They can enter those values right at the point of sale, and the transaction will have those values stamped on it as it comes in the door. And the rest of the process stays the same. The transactions get approved, they get posted, the journal entries are created, and then you do your month-end reconciliation. Okay, so very similar process. It's just that you're getting some data captured on the front end. All right, one last scenario here. We call it buyer-initiated payments. Some people also call it e-payables. Slight variation, but we do have some customers that are using this today as well. The purchase orders are getting created inside of SAP, and let's say that the POs will be created with a new payment term. Let's say e-pay, for example. So we've got these e-payable POs that are being created in SAP, whether they're coming from a purchase requisition or from a catalog or whatever. It's just they have that unique payment term on them. So now the merchant is going to send them the material, and the goods receipt will get entered inside of SAP just like it normally does, outside of Xponential. The invoice will get sent just like it probably does today, whether it's through an email or through the regular mail. And the invoice receipt will get entered in SAP as normal. And then some time may elapse. An example would be that some of our customers have talked about having a waiting period, maybe 7 to 15 days, letting the people that do the quality assurance and things like that can open the boxes, examine the material to make sure that nothing is broken, none of those kinds of problems. And then once that time has elapsed, and the invoice maybe goes through some type of workflow, it becomes approved to pay. At that point, they'll do an SAP payment run, and they'll generate a payment instruction file. That payment instruction file will go out to their issuing bank or to a third party that can process this type of file. In this case, the issuing bank will then generate one-time use or virtual card numbers, and they'll send emails to the merchants to tell them, here's a one-time use card number. It's good for this specific amount of money, for this specific amount of time, to pay yourself for this list of purchase orders. So then the merchant is able to pay themselves using those one-time use cards, and they will get their money, and then the transactions will come in through the daily files into Xponential. At that point, because all of the work against the purchase order has already been done as far as the invoice receipt and the payment, and it's kind of a dummy payment that went out the door on the payment instruction file, what we do is we will recognize that it's an e-payable transaction, and we will update the encashment date inside of SAP on those clearing documents to show, yes, the vendor has indeed paid themselves with the one-time use card. Then the transactions will get auto-approved and auto-posted on the back end to get the journal entries created so that the accounts all balance. And then at the end of the month, just like all the other scenarios, transactions come in the door on the statement file. We marry them up with the daily transactions, and then the monthly statement gets approved and posted, and then you pay your card issuer. So that's the end of that scenario as well. So those are the 4 scenarios that we work with today. Sorry that we don't have any a true demo of the product, but hopefully this gives you a high-level view of how the flow works, and then we can always go back at some other time if you'd like to see a full demo and see how the product actually works in real time. Okay? So with that, I just want to wrap this up and talk about making the case for that integrated solution. So focus on your controls of your P card. It's a high-risk business process, and it can be complex, and you want to give your upper-level management a peace of mind that you've got your arms around what's happening with your card program. Also focus on the data integrity. You've got a lot of risks, but the integration that a product like Xponential inside of your ERP can present you a lot of opportunities as opposed and offset those risks. And everything, and again, a reminder that, as you know, within your ERP, everything being done inside of your ERP is the most efficient and effective way to do it because of the controls, because of your business processes you've already built there, and because of the data integrity that you'll bring to the process. All right, with that, I'd like to turn it over to Linda Harrower from the University of Cape Town. Linda, thank you again for joining us to talk about your card program there at the university. And with that, I'm going to give you the keyboard and the mouse and let you take over and tell us about things. Ready for you, Linda.
Okay. Thanks, Dave, and good afternoon, everybody, from a sunny Cape Town. Right, I hope that the mouse is going to work for me. I'm trying.
Okay, now try it now, Linda. It looks like it went away after a moment. Now go ahead.
Okay. Right, yes, here we go. Thanks. Okay, so, right, okay, just a bit about UCT and who we are. We are the leading research university in Africa and feature quite highly on all global scales of universities. We have about 25,000 students, and of which 30% are postgraduates, quite a high number and proportion of foreign students from all over the world. We have about 5,000 staff, and about 20% of which are academics. Our ERP system is SAP. We have centralized supplier negotiation, but decentralized purchasing. So we have purchases scattered around our campus, which are sort of in different parts of the city, and that seems to work for us. But there's always room for improvement in these things. Our operational spend in 2013 was about 1.4 billion rand. That's spend over which we had some sort of discretion in terms of operations, and I think you should be able to see the equivalent in dollars and pounds and euros. We have a quite an interesting, very diverse spend because of our wide research activity. So that adds a significant factor in terms of how we do things. Right. I'm trying to get to the next slide. Sorry, I think hopefully it's coming now. Right, there we go. In terms of history, we implemented our card program in 2002, and this was actually prompted by a business process re-engineering project for procurement and payment. This was about 3 years after we implemented SAP. We did this project, and we really looked at what we were doing and where the problems were and the bottlenecks, and that prompted the implementation of our card program. And in fact, P-cards are only really just starting to take off in South Africa in a big way, and so we in fact piloted the first MasterCard P-card in South Africa, although we switched last year to Visa. But we also piloted the first version of Xponential, I'm very proud to say. It was called SmartLink, and it was actually developed in South Africa, subsequently taken over to the States, and rewritten and improved and smartened up an awful lot, as you will have just seen with what Dave has shown you. In fact, beginning of last year, we upgraded to Xponential, and that's been really great. We have all the full functionality that is on offer, and it addressed some of the gaps in our original product, although the essence of it is still the same. We have about over 1,000 cardholders now, and our monthly spend is growing all the time, currently about 11.5 million rand, and our transaction volumes per month about 5,500, and our card limits vary enormously. Cards are very much based on role, not rank. If you need to do certain types of transactions, you have a card, whether you're the driver or the Vice Chancellor or anyone in between. So our card limits range from about 2,000 Rand a month to about 600,000, I think, is our top limit. Right. So just some of our common applications. We originally were really looking to target our low-value, high-volume transactions, which were very problematic and seriously clogging up our accounts payable area. But we were also really wanted to ensure that we received the level 3 data from preferred suppliers, which we do have. Increasingly over these 12 years, it's become critically important for online payments, and because our academics particularly travel a lot, locally and internationally, it's been really important for all of those expenses. And conference fees, membership subscriptions, books and software, things like that. And we also allow it to be used instead of a travel allowance. But basically, we try and target anything that would have resulted in a reimbursement or a cash advance, such as field trips. What is very significant is we're currently in the process of implementing a full e-procurement platform, and we are planning an important aspect of that is a self-booking tool for travel, and that's for local travel basically, and all our local travel will be paid by card, and so it's really important as the spend increases to have a really good system in place to manage that and to manage visibility of those transactions. It's actually provided, Xponential has provided a platform for that. So in terms of what we look at, if we look at the comparative process analysis for traditional purchase order, there are many, many steps. I've just really summarized them here. But there is such potential for rework and problems and queries and changes and so on. Whereas obviously for the card, it becomes really simple. But it becomes simple if you have a good tool in which to process those transactions, and a good tool where you can have visibility of those transactions as well. So for us, it is really important. The cost-saving benefit for us is very important, because we believe a typical card transaction costs about 25% only of what a traditional purchase order transaction would cost. And in fact, I think it's even a lower percentage when it comes to sort of more complex things like reimbursements, which require a lot of sign-off and so on. So this really works for us, and I think what is important, we haven't implemented the purchase order functionality in Xponential because our bank and the banks in South Africa don't work on the rebate system, so there's no drive just to simply increase our spend on the card. For us, it's all about bottom line savings in our process. So just to really have a look at that, it's the card provides great value both to procurement and accounts payable because of process efficiencies, as well as to the departments where the actual purchases are sitting, and to individuals for whom it's obviously a very convenient tool. They much prefer to swipe their card or do an online transaction than having to claim the reimbursement afterwards. So procurement is increasingly seen as a strategic function and directly able to affect the bottom line in an organization. And I'm sure across the world, with budgets being tightened all the time, these factors become quite significant. And that's from the procurement side. Accounts payable is a functional operation, but it also needs to be efficient and cost-effective. So it's quite important to take out or to identify the points of pain in that process, or in any of the processes. And I think what's really valuable, as you'll see from the kicker on this slide, we've done something which I think is quite unusual, and that is we've combined our procurement and accounts payable into a single department, because effectively we're dealing with the same vendor but just at the opposite ends of the process. But so often, if there are opportunities to streamline a process in the way a vendor gets paid or somewhere along that value chain. So it's just quite important that those departments do work together to identify those opportunities, and often things can move or away from a purchase order and onto the card to attain those efficiencies. And so that's quite important, and I think often there are some politics behind the scenes which don't always allow for that to happen very easily. Right, in terms of our setup, we've got a fairly simple arrangement. So we have our card holders who make a purchase, then our card administrator who downloads the transaction, a daily transaction file into Xponential, and then the card processor, who's actually an SAP purchaser, who processes the transaction. In other words, adds the cost allocation and some meaningful text and posts the transaction. So our reporting actually happens after the event, but nevertheless that is able to happen from within Xponential, which is a huge plus for us because it can all be electronic. So we've got the daily process here, which is, as I've said, the cardholder would make a payment either online or by swiping their cards. They forward their supporting docs to the card processor. I must say I'm very interested in the app that allows them to photograph and send the information. I'll definitely be following up on that that they've described. And then the card administrator uploads the files, and the card processor does the matching and adding the detail. And then on a monthly basis, also as Dave has described, the card administrator uploads the statement file from the bank and runs the match report against the daily files, and that facilitates payment to the bank and reconciliation between the daily files and the bank statement. And our line managers, this is from the reporting side. The card processor, so it's what we call the card processor, would email expense reports from Xponential to the cardholder's line manager, who would review the expenses and sign off that expense report. And that is where the primary control sits from our point of view. And then we have a faculty finance manager who can view all the cards in their department, and they can review transactions which haven't been processed, and also review the expense reports online for any card holder for any period of time. Right. So in terms of reporting, as I've said, that monthly expense report must be signed off, and that's absolutely critical step for us. The finance manager plays quite an important role in terms of policy compliance and ensuring good financial disciplines to ensure that those reports have been sent and signed off. But I think what is really powerful from an Xponential point of view is the dynamic and custom reporting options, which really enable you to monitor transaction processing, cardholder spend patterns, card profiles and limits against spend. And that's a really useful tool that is used quite widely both by the finance managers as well as by card administration. There's a lot of visibility, which is very important. And then internal and external audits as well will also happen, and there's actually an auditor role within Xponential. And the importance of all this reporting increases as your card program spend increases. So just the final few comments, addressing the risks. As you know, the cardholder needs to be accountable for every transaction. Although we have corporate liability, there's obviously a cardholder agreement. But for us, the integration of Xponential into SAP is absolutely vital because it allows prompt, real-time posting to cost centers. It talks to the SAP tables, and that's very streamlined and safe. Another critical issue for us is that you're not managing a whole nother external system of user maintenance, because then that's another whole job. The roles within Xponential are managed within SAP roles and SAP authorization, and that takes away a huge amount of additional work. As I've mentioned, visibility and review of cardholder transactions is key, that they know their transactions are being reviewed and they are extremely visible for a range of people, the right people, to be able to see in Xponential reports. And then the fact that there's that really efficient account reconciliation between daily files and the bank statement is also vital. You've got to make sure that what you're paying to the bank is what you're posting to your individual cost centers. So just to finish, to say that yes, all financial processes carry risk, but with the appropriate controls this can be managed with the P-card, but still realizing all the benefits. Okay, thank you.
Linda, thank you very much, and it's always good for me personally to hear about how things are going at the birthplace, of Xponential. And I also wanted to add one more quick point. In your slide, you talked about the. Sorry, Jolene, before we jump in, I'm gonna.
That's quite all right.
One quick comment about the real-time postings and things, and Xponential and any integrated solution should be versatile and flexible and have plenty of places where the customer can tailor it and make the product do the special things that happen. And we see that every single one of our customers has unique validations and things that they need to do. And we did this at Cape Town. Linda, if you recall, there was a special window that needed to pop up for the cost centers and the work orders and some of that validation.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, that's right.
That integration there allowed, that kind of special validations and special set of processing for your users, so that they were comfortable with what they were doing. It was very similar to what they were doing, in the old world. So, anyway, with that being said, I want to now introduce Jolene Ainsley from the city of Tacoma. Jolene, it's all yours. Please take it away. I'm going to give the mouse to you.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's dark here because it's early morning. Welcome, everybody. If I get to talking too fast, raise your virtual hand, because I'm very, very passionate, and sometimes I get going and it's hard to stop because I'm very passionate about our program. I love the Xponential tool, and it's allowed me to do all kinds of things to meet visions and goals that I've seen for a long time. Anyway, I was transferred here to Tacoma in 1967 as a military brat. I love the city, the growth and the diversity that it represents. I'd like to invite you to come see us sometime. I like to have people come visit our offices. Like Linda, we have combined purchasing and accounts payable under one division manager because we found that it's the procure-to-pay process, and it's like yin and yang. And when we work as a team, it totally gets rid of the us and them syndrome, and it's just been marvelous. We also have decentralized purchasing in a certain respect, in that we allow, when we had SAP in 2003, that's when we started that up, we had issues with it, and because we couldn't get purchase orders out in time, they set up a policy where our folks had a $5,000 threshold to which they could create their own purchase orders, which created a unique situation for us. Well, it was also a perfect opportunity to expand the purchase card program, and I'll get into that. I'm not going to follow so much the exact process we do because ours is very similar to Linda's program, except we pay 2 times a week to maintain a positive file turn because that enhances our revenue share. We utilize the auto broadcast email located in Xponential for reminders, and with the new functionality that we just implemented, we're going to be able to tailor certain ones and target folks. So that being said, there we go. Let me kind of tell you what things were like pre-Xponential. Our particular card program was not really going anywhere. We've had our program since 1998, but it was only used for very small items. In 2003, as I mentioned, we adopted SAP as the ERP system, which, although very robust, it was extremely complicated to use and doesn't play nice with other things. Anyway, so the card program took a back seat for a number of years since we had to rely on mappers from various providers, which had to be downloaded, customized, massaged, and uploaded into SAP. At that time, SAP would not accept level 3 data. We could not get it into the system with the mappers. And then some policies were written to restrict card use to the most basic small purchases. It was realized at that time, unless we could find some sort of an integrated product that would overcome these obstacles and play nice with SAP, our program would never reach its potential. We severely limited, the NCC. Those groups were very narrow in scope. We had very low limits. We didn't allow temporary increases. And basically, folks out there figured that it was just way too much work for the return. And we just were not getting the efficiencies in the revenue share that we thought we should be getting. The other thing, like what Linda mentioned, every time you change bank, our reconcilers had to learn all new software, and that took a tremendous amount of time. Xponential allowed us to reduce that impact, so all they have to learn is what the new screens look like every time we upgrade, and that's about it. Next, what did we do? Okay, we started, oops, hold on. Come on. Right. Okay, here we go. There we go. Okay. The city purchasing and payables manager at the time, back in 2008, once we did the Xponential, it was called XI back then, had a vision of what the program could be. So what we did is we attended the April 2007 NAPCP conference with city representatives, and we went to all the card provider demos. We went to software reconciliation vendors. At that time, we chose Xponential, as I mentioned, was known as XIBI at that time. So it took us a number of months, and we actually went go live in October 2007. The P-Card program and XIBI program administrator position was created to take advantage of those new functionalities in March of 2008, and that's when I was hired. As a result, we were able to increase our number of cards, expand the custom NCC groups. We revised the policy to include travel, which was strictly prohibited on cards in the beginning. And then we experienced incredible growth for the fiscal year of 2008. We rose to number 2 in the state, second only to Washington State Department of Transportation for spend and revenue share. That's a pretty good return in 1 year for adopting the program. Oops. Okay. We also had the opportunity while we were at that conference to go look at the different card providers to see what they were doing, and we compared their products to terms to our then current provider, and then our contract that we were on was scheduled to expire, plus we investigated the WISCA card contract that Washington State had entered into. As a result, we found that that had the best terms, fraud liability protections, and highest rebate based on spend and speed of spend volume and speed of pay. So Xponential, which was still XIBI at that time, had been working with Lockheed Martin, who also had SAP, and they had created additional functionality, which included the ability to attach cards to POs and contracts, which was very appealing to us because of the revenue share, and it would also reduce the cost of the procure-to-pay, the traditional procure-to-pay process by about 20% because it cut off all the manual handling on the AP end of things. So anyway, Rick Swartwood, who was active in the NAPCP at the time and was the card program manager for Lockheed, served as my mentor. He gave me a list of lessons learned. And so with that and working with Dave, we determined the cost of running 2 separate projects versus combining implementation of the new bank card program with the existing XIBI upgrades. And we found out that combining one project, one out. We signed the contracts in December, started implementation in January of 2009. The Xponential portion was completed, fully tested by March 27th in 2009, and the bank transition was completed April 7th in 2007, or 2008, or 2009, I'm sorry. I'm getting my years mixed up here. And so we signed off on April 15th of 2009. What that did is, oops, I'm sorry, I'm having difficulty with my mouse too. Or it could be the operator. So in our card program, with that Xponential upgrade and bank change, Washington State and our new provider, we opened up an annual state forum, and that was launched in September 2009. They had multiple categories for awards that they were going to give out to the various entities that were participants on the contract. The 3 areas of recognition was the highest quarterly spend, innovative use of cards to expand the program, and best in class for implementation. Our implementation was so successful, we were awarded the best in class implementation by both the state, and we were nationally recognized by our provider at the first ever Washington State Forum. You can see the criteria and some of the things that led to this award. I also did a presentation at a subsequent NAPCP conference, and they might still have that on file if you wanted to see that. There we go. Okay, the main things that we did was to make sure that we had a plan in place. The success of our implementation, this was achieved by having a goal and then following the steps that's shown on the slide here. I must stress that the single most important factor was the collaboration and teamwork on the part of each of our three teams. That was our provider bank, that was Dave with Xponential, and of course our internal resources, which was comprised of the finance department, our IT department, Procure-to-Pay division, and our end users. The second most important was the constant communication, weekly, rain or shine. We had project calls for the team members, followed by letting our client departments constantly knowing what our progress was. Assembling team members that fit what your vision and goals are is probably one of the most essential things you need to do. And as a business project manager, there was no way I could do this by myself without that kind of commitment and collaboration. Okay, summarizing the best in class, what did it do for us? Well, commitment by the project team members was exceptional. This helped to create acceptance throughout our organization because of the constant communication. It gave our program additional credibility so we could get future strategies accepted. The additional rebate that was generated funded the Xponential implementation and also the subsequent annual maintenance and support contract payments. It created a reconciliation and approval system that completely reduced the impact of changing banks for our end users. It set the stage for innovations for future expansion of our program. One of the things that we did is, knowing that we were going to be able to use purchase orders and P cards together, was we did an AP optimization report with our new bank provider. And when we coupled that with the new functionalities, we were able to identify and go after supplier contracts using purchase orders as the card payment. Okay. Uh-oh. Okay, the slide is out of order.
Sorry about that, Jolene. Did we get a slide out of order there?
No, that's okay. I kind of have my high points over here that I'm following with, but that's okay. I found it. Anyway, since we did this, our card has experienced the steady growth since the implementation in 2009 when we did the combined thing. I was able to update our policies and procedures so that we could keep pace with the use that we wanted, that Xponential made possible for our cards. Now this January of 2014, we just switched to the new Washington State-led WSCA contract. This, with the enhanced Xponential functionalities, created, I'm going to steal your name, exponential growth over our previous bienniums. When you compare our stats with the RPNG card survey reports that they do for the NAPCP every year, we were right up there with the best practices and best performing units. And with this massive upgrade that we just completed, in fact we went live November 24th, we combined again the SAP Enhancement Patch 7 upgrade with the newest Xponential. So I just foresee all kinds of growth in the future. And you can see from these stats, October, we had 1.85 million in transferred spend. Our file turn is at 13, and you can see what our stats are. So they compare pretty nicely for the size of our city with what's expected for best practices. Okay, actually, proof is in the statistics. If you look at the transferred spend increases, 20% over the last biennium, 41% over the previous year or biennium, and that's just since the implementation of Xponential. And then we realized, just look at the stats for the revenue share, 28% over the 11-12 biennium, 48% over the 2009-2010. We've already exceeded the 300,000 bank incentive goal set by the finance department by 82,000, and that's was still the fourth quarter to go. We've had issues because of position reductions due to budget cuts. So this actually created an opportunity to really push the value of the P-Card program, and it has become more apparent to management. The proven efficiencies, while remaining in compliance with the public sector regulations, made this possible, and this technology has driven the success. The rebate, as I mentioned, is a large part of covering the cost of implementation, resources dedicated to the program, and the big thing that our client departments really like is the fact that we have the lowest assessment to our client departments because of the offset of the revenue share. And then we also think about our suppliers. They are on board too. Our procurement buyers are able to negotiate 1 to 2% prompt payment discounts because we allow them to charge upon shipment and service completion. And we educate them regarding the win side to card acceptance. But the key thing that as Linda mentioned in her presentation, is the robust reports that are generated out of Xponential make managing the program with one FTE, that's me, easier than before, and senior management has access to it too. This is kind of a spend by merchant category. We get dashboards provided by our bank, and this does coincide with the analytics that I do myself. One of the things we're most proud of is look at the 45% in wholesale trade. We represent utility companies, public works, sewer, stadiums, conference venues. We have our own cable TV. And so we're doing a lot of business with wholesale trade. And with the onset of Xponential and the ability to add P-cards as a PO payment vehicle, we've expanded that role. That's a pretty good spread. We also represent police and fire departments. Okay, and like David said, it is about the integration. Without integration reconciliation software, my opinion is our program would not be where it is today. Without the great collaboration of all parties, this would not have been possible. And as an aside, I just want to say the customer service that we have received from Dave Meyer as our consultant has surpassed any that we have received from multiple other software vendors. In fact, when we had our major SAP Bridge project in 2012, he came on board with us the weekend before go live, and so he was sent a commendation letter for contributing to the resolution of multiple defects that were not found by other company consultants. And it allowed us to go live when we needed to. And I also want to say thank you to the NAPCP for putting on the incredible conferences, gathering and publishing up-to-date resource information, and acting as a conduit to assess those of us that are charged with managing and growing and sustaining our own programs. The opportunities that they provide to meet, learn, compare, negotiate, network, find mentors provided to us as end users and providers in this industry is phenomenal. We as participants have a wealth of information at our fingertips that can help us create a program that is going to fit our visions and goals. I love old movies, and it kind of brings to mind, to me, the song from Fiddler on the Roof. I kind of see the NAPCP as, matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match. This is the place. Thank you, everyone.
Jolene, thank you so much, and thanks for your kind words, but I want to make one additional comment there that the collaboration and the customer support that you received is something that we believe in strongly at WNS with all of our customers and with all of our solutions and the things that we do for our customers. So again, thank you for that. Thank you. I'm not going to go through any final thoughts. I know that we've exceeded our time, but doesn't it make sense to approach P-cards that have complexity and risk the same way you approached the installation of your ERP system? And with that, Again, thank you from myself, David Meyer, Linda Harrower at Cape Town, and Jolene from the city of Tacoma. You see our contact information here on the screen. It will be part of the deck. If you would like to request a copy of this slide deck, please let NAPCP know or myself know, and we will get a deck sent out to you. And I don't think we have time for questions, but Kara, if you're still on the line there, if there were questions that were coming in, I guess we can try to answer them after the fact through email. Okay?
You said it exactly right. David, ladies, did a nice job. I think we need to have all of you back, and let's do another hour. I mean, I said it at the top. I said it at the top of the hour. 60 minutes is going to fly by. So yes, how about this, everyone? I have seen all of your questions come in. They're captured. I know who you are. So I will, David, the majority are for you. Joeline, I see a couple for you, and as well as Linda. So offline, I will send those questions out to you guys. And like David said, you've got all of our contact information. I will also send a follow-up email to everyone with, again, this information, and we'll have plenty of information for you and get everyone directly connected. So again, everyone, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your days, and we will all be in touch.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.